Alright, let's take a trip back in time and see how they used to make things in the olden days. So here I have an old radio headset. Sterling of London. These are 2000 ohms, and it's what they used to use on crystal radios and things like that. So very high impedance, very different from anything that's made today. This is going to be a two-part series because what we're going to do is we're going to put modern internals in this. So I'm going to put new drivers, recable them, that kind of stuff. It's going to be sympathetic. We're going to tune them to make them sound good, that kind of thing. But these are just beautifully made. As you can see, very thick metal, nice knurled screws for adjustment. Just a beautiful thing. And obviously after this there'll be a usable pair of headphones again, and if you have a steampunk persuasion or something, you might want these. We'll probably sell, we've made a few pairs of these, we'll probably sell these off once we're done. But yeah, let's just have a look inside, because it's very different from what you'll get in a modern headphone. If this is, I haven't had this pair apart, but I've had other ones. We'll have a look. So I'm gonna so this has got a split headband, so like on the HD25. You'd be surprised when you split the headband and you put that on your head, it just gives it much more support. I think it's just because it's covering more surface area, and it takes more weight as well. So you've got two headbands carrying the weight of the headphones. But yeah, just splitting the headband like that makes it really secure on your head. So if you're in the war or whenever these were from, they don't fall off at a vital time. So I'm just gonna remove this beautiful knurled screw at the side here. And it's got a big fat washer underneath, which is nice as well. Don't know if you can see that. It's like got a step there. Just a nice little piece. It didn't need to. That's the screw that came off. Cool. These probably haven't been serviced for 60 years or something. So there's that. Let's take this off the other side. So very simple construction really. The headband, just two pieces of spring steel. Got this lovely screw on the side there. So that's removed the headband. Now this is all riveted together, so you can see how this would allow them to swivel a little bit but restrict the motion with these nice little tabs on the side here, and again it can rock backwards and forwards, and then these will stop it from moving too much. So it's just, you know, that metal on there is a lot thicker than anything that you'll find on a pair of headphones these days, and they're quite small. But these, I don't know, they're probably made in much lower volume. So that's just bent sheet of metal. Is it aluminium? I don't know. It's probably nickel plated steel or something like that. And on the back here you can see there's two screwed on terminals which are attached to the cable. So it would have been easy to replace the cable at the time. You just unscrew these and then and you're in. So we'll just take one of these off. I don't know if I've got a tiny span of the right size. I don't think I have. I think just, sorry to anyone watching. If an engineering persuasion, I just use pliers to undo a nut. Alright, so two nuts, so you can tighten them against each other. And then this is the actual cable, which again is quite interesting looking. My gosh, the amount of love that went into these. Give me a moment, I'll just get this off and then I'll show you that. I don't know, I've no idea how much these must have cost back in the day, but just a lot of work would have gone into making these. This is obviously, I suppose, before the age of mass production, and someone would have made this with a lot of love. But yeah, it's interesting to see. So you can see you've got twisted cables. So again, high-end cables these days have gone back to being twisted. Just it's a better way of doing it. Stops crosstalk and things like that. And these would probably, I don't know, 2000 ohms. I have no idea what would have been driving these, but it might have been susceptible to RFI, that kind of thing. Alright, so this is just like a little metal clamp, just to hold the cable in place down there with some nice little screws. Take that off, put those there. So let's take a look at the cable. So here you can see it's got, I don't know if you can see that, it's got wire wound round to create the loop. So it's wound around something, thousands of tiny little wires, and then this is all tied together with string, as you can see. So string around there, or it's cotton, just to make a nice neat thing, and then they're joined together again at the Y split with some cotton wrapped around it. So this would all have probably been done by hand, and just taking their time over it, and oh, it's a lovely thing. Okay, so that's the cable, and look at the other end. Look at this. None of your headphone jacks, just 2 bits of wire that you jam into something. So these would probably have had screw terminals that went down onto them to provide the power, and they're crimped onto the end of the wire. Wire again is all wrapped at the bottom here in an extra piece of parachute cord, or whatever the equivalent would have been at the time, some kind of copper cord. That's a cotton cord. So yeah, that cable, like if we were to sell a cable that had that much work to go in, it'd probably be £100 for the cable. Okay, so we've got the cable off the ear cup. Now what we'll do is we'll undo this. And as you can see, these are just like Bakelite. So it's what they had before. Plastic is one of the first kind of plastic materials, but this won't remelt if you heat it up. And it's also quite nasty. I think it sweats and goes brown over time and releases some nastiness. And that wouldn't have been very comfortable against the ear. It's not actually pressing it on the ear. It's not too bad. It's actually not too bad. You know, it's not nearly as uncomfortable as it looks. But obviously on a modern headphone, we're going to put some padding on there. But these are about the same size as some HC25s, and as we've got lots of HC25 bits, we'll probably make them fit HC25 pads. So we're going to 3D print one of those that goes on there, but takes a normal pad just for comfort. This unscrews. There we go. Yeah, so this would have been cutting edge technology at the time. Piece of Bakelite like that. But yeah, it's not very nice stuff. Yeah, I can't remember what it sweats, but it's something quite nasty, so we'll get rid of that. And then inside you've got metal disc. Remove that, and that is what makes the sound. So essentially you've got, so in here you've got the screw terminals here, which of the cable you'll have an insulator in between so it doesn't short against the casing. They come up again through an insulator, through a pin, and then they join onto these, which are essentially electromagnets. So you've got a huge coil of wire on there, and then an iron core of some kind, I would have thought. And that piece of ferrous metal, that's probably a steel disc or something like that, goes on there, and as the magnets sort of the magnetic field pulses backwards and forwards, it's going to cause this to kind of wibble around. So it doesn't have a driver the same as a modern headphone. Let me see if I've got a modern one up here just so you can see how we kick it these days. There we go. So modern driver, you've got the voice core. So you've got the voice core, which again is similar to that. You've got essentially an electromagnet, but that pushes against a permanent, so the voice coil on this is attached to the diaphragm, so it's attached to the piece that moves. And then you've got a permanent magnet in there, so as you drive current through it, it's attracted and pulled away and attracted and pushed away from the magnet, which causes the vibrations, which vibrates this mylar skin. And as I said, we're on Bakelite now. We don't have thin plastics like that, I don't think, when these were made. So, you know, that seemed like a perfectly good solution. It would have been fine for voice, that kind of stuff. That's what this was for, you know, listening to radio messages, that kind of thing. So it'd be fine for, you know, but music would have probably not sounded amazing, just because this would be a bit rattly, I would have thought. I don't know, do you reckon that flexed? I don't know exactly how these would have sounded, and I don't have any equipment that would do it, but I suspect it'd be a bit kind of tinny, or only have certain frequencies that it responds nicely to. Yeah, so driver technology's changed very much since those days. Here you go, so you've got a couple of electromagnets wobbling a magnetic disc, and here you've got a diaphragm with a voice coil and a permanent magnet, that kind of stuff, so it's quite different. And I suspect just advances in technology like the plastics and things that would have made this possible. I'm sure they had speaker cones which were more like, so At the time, they would have had larger speakers which are built similar to this with paper cones and that kind of stuff. But I think just shrinking it down probably wasn't sensible at the time. They probably just didn't have the technology, and this did the job. So let's just undo these last couple of bolts and see if it'll come apart a bit more. So you've got a metal washer there, and as I said, you've got an insulator, which is, oh, I don't know, some kind of random material, which is probably giving me cancer just by touching it. Oh, it looks like mother of pearl. It might be some kind of shell or something. It's weird. It could be some kind of organic material. That's pretty mad. Yeah, I have no idea what that is. It's all shimmery and made of loads of layers. So it looks like mica, or yeah, it could be mica. That's interesting, isn't it? Life before plastics. You had to get creative with stuff, because this would just be, well, they wouldn't do it this way, but yeah, it'd just be like a plastic ring now, because plastic doesn't conduct electricity very well. But yeah, this must, I reckon mica. I'm getting the feeling. Wow, look at that little washer. Shall I hold that up to the camera? So here we go. So you can see that it's all shiny, and it can be splits off into layers. This one's already starting to shed down, but yeah, it's some kind of, oh, look at that splitty, yeah, like mica or something. Ah, wow, that's cool. Okay, so push these bolts through. Is this going to come off? Oh, there we go. So that's the actual metal ear cup. Not sure how that's made. Looks like it could be turned. It's got circles in the centre there. So it could have been turned out of a piece of metal, but I suspect that would be too expensive. This was probably stamped in some way. Stamped and formed and then threaded at the top here. Just cut a thread into it. Yeah. I don't know. It looks like it could be turned, which would be quite an expensive process. They would have had to get a bit of metal and obviously remove most of it. Yeah, so I don't know what kind of volume these are made in, but it must have been quite expensive to make them. Cool, that's cool. And what have we got here? So here you can see the wires coming off the back of the posts and then connecting to these coils of wire in there, and then they're joined together in the middle, so both coils act as one. Or it might be that they're set, it could be that they're set so that they're opposites, so that the metal thing goes like that to make the sound. And again, this is a big chunky piece of metal that they're attached to. Yeah, so this is a big iron thing that goes through the centre. So there's probably some kind of magnetic circuit involved here that I'm not fully aware of. It's not, as I said, this technology hasn't been used for a very long time, and I'm not fully au fait with how it's done. But again, you've got those little mica screws in there. I suppose they must have been worried about rubber degrading or something, because they had rubber at the time, but it probably wasn't as good as it is now, so it might have broken down over time. So anyway, that is how they made headphones in the olden days. Oh. Sorry, it's a London one. Sorry, the last one was German. This one, these are made in London. Geezer. So this is made by some geezers in London back in the olden days, in the black and white times, back before we was all on that there social media and stuff. Anyway, cool. So I'm going to hand these over to James, our junior product designer, and he's going to design some new parts so that we can fit modern day kind of 40mm drivers in there. We're going to recable them. We're going to make a similar cable to this so it looks sexy. Do you want to see one we made before? Give me a second. Let me just grab one. Here you go. So here's one what we made earlier. So this is a similar kind of thing. So you've got lovely headband features, and we made a similar cable to the original, obviously out of our wire, made little things to go on the back there, and then fitted velour pads from some HC25s, and then under there you can see we've got 3D printed parts and 40mm titanium driver, so quite a fancy driver in there, and then we did a bit of tuning on the enclosure to make it sound good. these sound pretty decent actually, and look pretty cool. So, I keep meaning to give them away or sell them or something, but I can't quite figure out what to do. We put a lot of love into these, and I'm not sure what's best to do with them. But yeah, these are pretty cool, and these are also going to be pretty cool when they are finished. So yeah, so what we'll do is I'll get James to video the process, and that'll be another video that we release in probably a month or so. Cool. If you've got any questions, stick them in the thingamabob. It's been great hanging out, and I'm going to crack on with some other cool stuff. All right, bye.